Just threw you in the mix. You're an improviser. Improvise.
Oh, wow. The thought of doing an improv show right now, very daunting.
Yeah. The thought of doing anything for you.
Today, yeah.
I feel like this podcast lately has just been like a weekly checkup on what it's like to be pregnant with Rachel LaForce.
I feel like a lot of people could benefit from that podcast.
Yeah, I would hope so. I'm just also making sure that I don't have the double audio playing per usual.
Oh, yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
The listeners love that.
Yeah, I think we're good. Okay.
Okay, guys, welcome back to Common Ground. I'm your host, Rachel LaForce.
I'm your other host, Alex Gettlin.
Guys, we're married. We're comedians. I am very pregnant.
Super pregnant.
And we do this podcast every Monday. We live stream at 10 a.m. Now we live stream when I can get out of bed and get here because my body is tired. V tired. It's very tired.
I know what V.
Well, I didn't know if you have your finger on the pulse of, shorthand on the internet.
And you do?
I do.
Okay.
I don't. I have to look up things all the time.
Yeah, I explain stuff to you way more often than the opposite.
I went down the rabbit hole of NFTs
Yep.
yesterday.
What do you think?
I think I still don't really get it.
This is the easiest way it was explained to me.
Okay.
Or not explained to me directly, but I understood it. So Gary V, I've showed you Gary V before. He's like a big internet personality, entrepreneur. He's like one of these like go after it business guys.
Does he have gold necklaces?
No. He's like
I feel like with a name like Gary V to me sounds like the guy in the neighborhood that owns the roller rink.
Oh yeah. No, I think his last name.
Hey, Gary V, baby.
Yeah. No, I think his last name's like Varnichuk or something that's like hard to pronounce.
I mean, yeah, I figured.
Anyway, so he was saying like think about any time you've played like a game on your phone or had some kind of thing and you can buy like let's say you're playing a video game, you could buy like a custom skin for your character.
Okay.
That's what an NFT is, except it's one of a kind. There can't be a replica. So if, let's say you made like a Tracy video, and there's a way you can make an NFT of that Tracy video, and there's, this part I don't understand, but there's some way, the same way like blockchains make cryptocurrency, and it's like a unique identifier, that you can put that to a piece of media, digital art, video, music, whatever, and then that is like an NFT. So Gary V's point, and he's not like a tech genius, but he is
Clearly, because I don't feel like that explanation helped at all.
he is like a business and marketing genius, is that it'll become he's pretty successful in that world.
All right, Gary V.
You actually would probably like, to the viewers right now, if you watch or listen to Gary V, let us know, what do you think about Gary V? But I'll send you some Gary V stuff. You might be into it.
Okay.
But he was explaining it like, it'll be a thing where you're conversing with someone and it'll be almost like your digital wallet and you could show them all your cool NFTs the way if like somebody had like sports memorabilia at their house that was
So they're like digital pogs?
kind of. What I don't understand, this is the part I don't understand, right? Is that
Why we need this service?
that's part of it. Like let's say you went over to somebody's house and they had a baseball autographed by Babe Ruth. You could look at that.
I would be in the Sandlot.
You would. Deep cut reference. That's a great movie to show Jonah when he's, you want to hear a story, actually? You're going to laugh at this.
What? Can you hold the story and finish with the Gary V?
Yeah.
Okay.
So the thing is, like, if you went over to someone's house, they had an autographed Babe Ruth baseball, and
Okay.
it was like, look at my prized possession, and it's one of a kind, or, very rare, obviously. It'd be like that, it would be sacred to that person. It'd be cool to have that item. It's effectively a digital version of that. I don't totally understand how, but I guess because the blockchain attached to it is one of a kind, and therefore it becomes an NFT. I guess to me, the part I don't understand is like,
But they can be applied to anything.
I think, yes. But people, it seems like it's a little bit like cryptocurrency where people don't really get it, but they understand that there is theoretical value in the future and they're investing in it because.
But what are you investing in? Like, what is the product? Because that's where I guess my confusion is, which is like, it sounds like they can be applied. It's any digital piece of property that essentially has its own serial number.
Yeah. I think.
So what does that mean?
Dude, I don't know.
Like, that's the only reason
Yeah.
why I'm like, if this was Shark Tank, I'd be like, yeah, I don't understand your pitch.
Right. I'm out. That's what they always say, right? I'm out.
I guess. I don't really know anything about Shark Tank.
Yeah,
I don't like watching people lose. I have to face
But
so
sometimes
much.
they win.
Sure, but I live in Hollywood where it is a giant Shark Tank, okay?
Okay.
I'm constantly up against no thanks. I'm out. Why would I want to watch other people
Lose.
lose?
Yeah.
No, thank you. It's why I don't like sports.
But some people win.
Okay. Not a lot.
Anyway, Sandlot story.
Okay.
My parents showed it to me when I was little, and I don't remember. I was really young. I don't remember how young I was, but there was one point.
Did you watch it or they just showed you the film? This is The Sandlot. Good night, Alex.
Well, I remember at some point I was watching the film, and then there's that scene at the end where they're like the big dog is about to jump the fence, and I was so scared. I like shut off the TV and started crying and ran upstairs. And like I was too afraid of what was coming. Like the big dog, it was like terrifying. So I was like bawling, being like, "Oh, it was scary," and I just had like a meltdown. Apparently,
Have you watched it since?
I have, and
Okay.
it was actually quite fine.
Oh, okay, good. So that must have been before your horror movie phase.
Yeah, I was like 5, maybe 4. I was really little, like really, really little.
Yeah, I guess maybe. Yeah, you probably would. Because when did it come out? Like 92?
Let's Google it. When did The Sandlot come out?
I don't think 92. It was closer to like 94, I think.
Split the difference, 93, baby.
Okay. All right. Yeah.
Let's look up some other fun info about The Sandlot.
I love The Sandlot.
Well, let's see here.
I know
You know?
they're going to remake it.
Yeah.
And that makes
More like The Bland Lot, because that's going to suck.
and that makes me sad because I think they're redoing the Mighty Ducks trilogy.
Well, actually, there's The Sandlot. Then in 2005, there was The Sandlot 2. 2007, they had The Sandlot Heading Home. And according to Wikipedia, in July of 2018, it was announced that a prequel film was in development. And it takes place in the 1950s.
Oh my god.
Who needs a prequel to The Sandlot?
Yeah, I'm like what does that look like?
And then it says in 2019, a sequel television series was announced with Disney Plus.
That would be fun. That I could see. But
Remember when they made like 12 American Pie movies after the fact, and it was like no one in the cast was in them?
I don't know where are those generating income?
The American Pie movies?
Like I mean when they do that, when they make
Well,
sequels that are like straight to DVD and stuff like that, where is that making money?
well, I think those were really hot pre-streaming, and so it would cost them like nothing to make these films, and then they would be like in a bargain bin at Walmart or Target, and somebody's grandma's like, "Oh, this is a fun Christmas gift," and you know what I mean? They would sell them for like $5.
Someone's grandma was like, "Oh, American Pie 12. This is a good Christmas gift."
Sure. Let's see how many American Pie movies.
That
are.
would not
How
be
many
my
American Pie
grandmother's.
movies do you think there are?
6.
Can you name them all?
American Pie, We Tried Again. And then the other ones were just American Pie, This Was a Mistake.
This was a mistake. Oh my God. Okay. So there are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 American Pie films. Okay. So there are 4 with the original cast in the series, and it's American Pie, American Pie 2, American Wedding, and American Reunion.
Wow.
I actually have seen American Pie 2 and Reunion. I never saw the wedding film. Then the spin-off movies.
Guess date night. We know what we're doing.
The spin-off movies are American Pie Presents Band Camp, American Pie Presents The Naked Mile, American Pie Presents Beta House, American Pie Presents The Book of Love, and the most recent one, American Pie Presents Girls Rule.
Wow.
Let's check out that one. Oh, Girls Rules. Okay, so this is
Wait, and when did that come out?
2020 apparently. Let's see.
What?
Straight to DVD. All right, this plot is too
Oh.
long, but yeah. So I guess it's like, hey, reverse the thing where, what's so funny is like, okay, so the original plot of American Pie is, I'm
Oh,
sure,
this is very upsetting.
yeah. Well, we can get rid of this now. The original plot of American Pie, if you remember, Rachel, was that a bunch of dudes were like, whatever it takes, we got to get laid before we go to college. And it's just funny. Like, I don't know the premise of this all girls American Pie, but imagine if it was the opposite, where these girls were like, whatever it takes, we're going to get our birth control. And that like, was the whole premise of the film or whatever it is.
That would just be a lot of waiting rooms, you know? Not as much adventure in that movie.
Well, like, certainly couldn't be like the challenge of these gals to lose their virginity before college, because it's like, oh, any dude that I know, okay. Like, there's no movie there. There's no, but that's what it would be.
Oh.
So there you go. That's our tangent right there. I think American Pie.
I don't actually think it's any harder for men. I know you're being silly, but I feel like I hear that narrative a lot where it's always like, "Oh, well, you've got a vagina, so like it's super easy for you." And I'm like, "What, do you have a latch on your penis?" Like, I don't feel like.
What do you mean? It's easier for it's you don't believe the narrative that it's harder for men to get laid than it is for women to get
No,
laid.
I think men make it way more complicated on themselves because men also have this. Men typically, this type of man, I'm generalizing, don't come for me. You know what I mean? We're talking about American Pie movies. This is clearly a comedy show, okay?
Nice breather from last week.
We did a palate cleanser
did.
episode, okay? And I have some more thoughts on Israel, so buckle up, baby. But okay, this type of man, I feel like doesn't want to accept what their actual potential mates are. You know, I'm like, yeah, it's hard for you to get laid because like a 10 who is successful is not interested in like
Sure.
sleeping with you. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like that's why it's hard. I don't know. I think dudes like really overcomplicate it. Really. I think there's definitely that type of woman that's like, gross, like no thanks. You know, where it's like they've always got an opinion.
Okay. So most is humans.
Sure, but I'm saying there's like a lot of women that are in their early 20s that are very interested in having a healthy sex life.
Correct.
And so I think I don't know. Anyway,
this is what I would say.
I'm too tired to
I would say
talk
that
about the intricacies.
a lot of dudes are just like, yeah, whatever. You want to fuck? I want to fuck. Let's do it. And they're just like the expectation is very low. I think women, understandably, require a little bit more of like finesse. Like,
but I think some do. That's what I'm getting at. Of like some do, and I don't think they even really care. But that's like a societal thing. I think some of it comes from a place of like conditioning of like, oh, if I just sleep with somebody for the physical act and the physical pleasure, then somehow something is wrong with me.
yeah.
So I have to have somebody do something. It's like an obstacle course.
Yeah,
like,
but I mean, we're proof of the opposite. We slept together pretty quickly, and we're married.
okay, well, thanks for sharing that with everyone.
And now we're married with a baby on the way. So
Yeah,
which
again.
also came from sleeping together.
Okay. Wow, I am actually might be blushing. I'm feeling relatively uncomfortable.
Why?
Well, I think it's good that we finally confirmed for everybody that we did sleep together to make a baby, because I know everybody out there was like, if somebody was given the next Messiah to carry, it would be Rachel LaForce. You know what I mean?
Well, that is a great transition into what you were saying earlier. So you feel like you know a lot about Israel now. This is the one thing I'll say that I appreciate that you said to me last night, is that, you know, the most, I guess, recent sort of quasi-similar thing we had in our cultural narrative of like contentious debate was about a year ago, and still to this day, necessary, complicated conversations about race in America, in the context, especially with black people and police and systemic racism and all of that. And I appreciated that you were like, listen, I think every American should have some kind of opinion on that, because you live here in the United States and we see it every day. And then you're like, but the Israel-Palestinian conflict, you're like, other than people who've been studying this and are directly related with family or their culture directly tied to that, why would everyone think they are able to just all of a sudden study, or rather understand this nuanced thing through like one or two infographics they saw?
Buckle up, guys. Here's my thing. I feel more and more that this narrative of like, we cannot be silent. Yes, we cannot. We cannot any longer. It is especially as you know, with the talking about racism specifically in our country of black versus white people, and which I hate to say that, but that's the reality, right? That it takes white people educating ourselves, having conversations with people of color in our life that are open to having conversations with us. Not everybody's interested, and that's okay. You know, and all of those things, certainly. Being active, figuring out how to do it, you know, examining your own microaggressions, your unconscious bias, all of these things, very important. Um, Being aware of foreign affairs, also important. It is important to call out injustice when you see it.
Yeah.
It is also important to make sure you know what the fuck you're talking about
Right.
before some account that you follow. Like, infographics are great. They're great when you are just wanting to dip your toes in to figure out the ins and outs of something. The other difference is when there were infographics coming out, and they still come out all the time. If you don't follow, you know, people outside of your experience on social media, I encourage you to. There are plenty of folks that
Pokes.
pokes. There are plenty of folks that are interested in helping to educate, and they're sharing their education. So to me, an infographic made by a Black activist makes sense. Now, it's still probably, you know, skewed to whatever part of the conversation they're interested in educating on, but it is of their life experience mixed with you know, like all of the history, right? Seems like a good source. Now, many of these infographics are made by teams of white people who live in Indiana, okay? And so, you know, when everybody's reposting all of this
I
stuff,
don't know if that's accurate, but
no, but I'm just saying a lot of these accounts are,
right.
it's like, you know, even though there's not a person behind them, it's like, you know, we're for the people or
Yeah.
whatever all of these accounts are. Like, this is not a team of people who are experts on the Israeli-Palestinian
You
conflict.
know, I will.
And so they're just posting these, you know, quick bits that they've put together over 2 days of scrambling because they're like, this is what our content page is about, so we have to have information. And then everybody else who feels, whether it's performative or their heart is really in the right place or both, are just immediately reposting things without any idea of what it is that they're really reposting, what it really means to call something genocide when you have never, like, there's almost a sense, because we're saying, like, you cannot be silent, we have almost diluted a lot of the things that are happening around the
Of course.
world. And I think that's incredibly dangerous.
Yeah. Well, I think the reality is, so everything you said is totally accurate.
Oh my God, thank you.
The unfortunate reality is it's a combination of a byproduct of social media, ADD culture, quick access to info, and two groups of people that, in my opinion, both legitimately are very afraid, and many people in their world are suffering. You know, and now there's like this kind of back and forth narrative of like, oh, you think Palestinians have it bad? Look at how Jews have had it for all of history. It's like, listen, this is not a battle that either one of us should win. Who suffered more? We both lose, guys.
Yeah, this is not a rap battle of, you know,
Yeah,
past
who had it?
trauma.
Who had
Yeah.
it worse? You know, there's been times where like black people and Jews have argued like we had it worse. It's like, again, we're both losing here. That's not the stop with that fucking conversation. The conversation should be like, we're all human. We all want to live in peace. And if you don't, there are people who don't, of course, it's a problem. But in general, humans on the whole, I really truly believe humans on the whole just want to live in peace, take care of their families, have a nice time with their friends, and not live in a perpetual state of fear. There's got to be a way we can, foster that, especially in the U.S.
Well, yeah, but that is where my anger comes from, which is like, it's a whole other thing. And if you actually think what I'm saying is interesting or care, follow me on Instagram. And I post a lot about this stuff. And this is what I want to post about this week, because I've had some time to wrap my head around it, which is like, we have experienced continual trauma, not to like use a buzzword, you know what I mean? But we have experienced continual, like, beating over the head of trauma since I would say the Clinton Trump race. Like, so what was that, 2016?
Yeah.
I would say that's
No,
really
15, really.
so that's really when it started of like what team are you on, name calling, so it was like then we saw this huge rise of like, sexism in our country and like the very real how embedded that is in our culture. We saw, it's like all the separatism that I feel came from Trump's rhetoric.
See, the sexism one I think is confusing. I'm not saying it's not real. I'm not taking away from the merits of it, but just from my assessment and what I think a lot of other guys like me think, like racism is easy in the sense that like it's obvious if you are discriminating against someone because they're black or any other race or whatever, it's disgusting and there's no window where there's like, well, what about? But the sexism conversation I think is complicated because men and women do have inherent differences, and there are conversations about not should we have the same access to everything, rights, values, etc., but more about like societal roles and how different roles have come into fruition, and that I think is more complicated through the lens of sexism because it's like this broad term that gets applied to things that are not that simple. And even something as like the wage gap conversation. If you say that women get paid less than men because men have been systematically keeping women from earning the same amount of money, and there aren't like 100 other factors as to why on average men earn more than women, that's just false. Sexism is a factor, of course, but there's a lot of other factors involved. Why? I mean, women have only been in the workforce in the same capacity as men within the past like 100-ish years, not even. I mean, before then, it was just people had trades and women, for the most part, didn't work because most people just did like hard manual labor, unless you were, you know what I'm saying? Like through human history.
Sure. I mean, you and I, we split on this. I have much different, obviously, because I'm a woman, so my
Of
experience in
course.
the world has been different. I have very different opinions on it than you. I don't think it's that simple, but I do agree that uh, all of these conversations are much more complex. But to me, they all stem from the fact that we live in a patriarchal society. So women, yes, there are differences. And again, like this isn't including like non-binary and all of the different like gender identities and sexual identities. I'm talking about a binary. So I'm talking about men versus women, right? In the general
We get it.
sense.
Which
Um,
most people are either identify as male or female.
Sure. But the point being that, and yes, there's inherently like different, skills or attributes or things like that they have. I also think, and some of them are, I think, inherent. I think a lot of them are taught.
So I have two questions.
Sure.
And this is not challenging. I'm legitimately asking. And this is for anyone. If you want to follow up with me with your answer, I would love to hear it. I really mean that. First question is what makes our society patriarchal? Is that right? How is it?
Sure. I mean, how much time do you have?
Hold
It's
on.
because it's built by
But
men.
hold on. Okay, hold on. And second, what would make it not a patriarchal society? So to that question, if because it's built by men, does that mean things built by a men or majority of men are inherently patriarchal? It's by default if it is majority male.
Sure, but I also want to point out the way that you're even phrasing your question is and these are all energetic things, not what you're saying, which is you have already placed on it that I'm saying that patriarchal means bad. That's not what I'm saying.
Okay.
So, but
So then why is it the context of like take down the patriarchy is a sign of victory?
right, but I'm not saying that.
Okay.
Right now
All
I'm
right.
having a conversation with
Sure.
you about my opinion.
Okay.
So, that's what I'm saying is like I would like the respect in the conversation of like if you're really asking me like what I think, then I'll
Yeah.
tell you what I think, which is we live in a patriarchal society because it is built upon men, specifically white men, being at the helm, right? That comes as early as like the creation of America. And that's
Sure.
the society I'm going to talk about because you can go into hunters and gatherers and all
Yeah,
of
yeah,
those
yeah.
things. And frankly, I have opinions on it, but I'm not educated
Right.
enough. And I just talked about people who, if you don't really know about something,
Sure. I respect
educate
that.
yourself. Don't do a repost.
If you don't know, now you know. Biggie
Um,
Smalls.
okay. R.I.P.
He was part of the patriarchy technically.
R.I.P. He was very well to do in his own society. Okay.
Greatest
Yeah.
of all time in my book.
So, yeah, so we live in a society that was built upon the structure of white men. White men make the rules, they make it was like that's how our government has always been run. So therefore that's where the centralized power is. Um, all of those things. Do you want something more broken down than that?
No. Okay. So what what I'm getting is we live like currently we still live in a patriarchal society because most people in whatever term you want to use for power, Congress, run media companies, whatever, are men.
Yeah.
So if it was 51% or more, would that mean that there's no longer a patriarchal society? Or like what would make it where we don't live in a like
I
what
mean, that's such a difficult question because everybody's going to give you a different answer.
so the reason I'll tell you like and I mean this in the most like rational way where it gets kind of frustrating is it's like, great, what would make it not a patriarchal society where there isn't this narrative? Because I know you weren't trying to say this in this moment, but a lot of times the energy in the narrative is patriarchal society effectively means bad men making life bad for women who are oppressed. What would what what would we do? What can we do to make it not the case rather than just like, hey man, you're the problem. Okay, what is the answer then to fix that problem?
Well, I mean, I think it's the same thing as asking how do you eradicate institutionalized racism? I mean, these are not like, oh, we're all just going to get together and take a big vote as Americans and decide like, ah, we don't like this anymore. All right, let's keep it moving. I mean, these are this is where, and I know some people scoff at microaggressions or unconscious bias, but this is where it gets very difficult. Of like, I have like my own internal misogyny of like, do I really look at a woman and think that because her body doesn't look the way another woman's body is, she is of less value? I don't think as Rachel LaForce I actually believe that, but that is what I have been told and conditioned my entire life. So that is my belief. Well,
Sure.
so was that my own belief or was that belief given to me? That's just one example, right? So there's all of these ways that we have been socialized. Like you and I have even been socialized differently of what is expected of us, all of those things, everything that has been signaled to us, what is available to us, based off of the fact that we're a boy and I was a girl, right?
Mhm.
So I also think I understand the conversation around we have to abolish these things. I think that there is power in that. I think that we need those loud voices in order to cause a big enough stir for people to go, what are they talking about? But um, I also believe that if it was that easy, we would have already done it. So it's to me, it's having these conversations. It's excuse me, I know that like we all think that like our lives are so important and that we're going to be here forever. People have been having these conversations forever. Even if in secret, even if it was like women meeting in secret or, whatever it was and whatever it's going to continue to be. So to me, how do we begin to do something different is we have to have conversations. We have to have conversations in our own home. We have to have conversations in work. We have to, as women, appropriately ask for more. Um, we have to accept the nuances of all these different conversations, and hopefully then over time, in the same way of like, erosion doesn't happen overnight. Mountains aren't created overnight, like
Sure.
ice caps, all those same things. To me, and in my opinion, both on an earthly plane and of a spiritual plane, it's the same thing. Of it's not going to be something where we all just have made this decision and now it's different. I don't think that that's true. And
And
I
if you want
also
more of this conversation, the Rachel LaForce show is coming soon. She will be dropping this knowledge on a regular basis with people that are not me.
Well, you asked me the question. Why do you like you're acting like you're bored? You asked me.
No, I'm just teasing folks in the sense of like this
But
is
the Rachel Force show is coming. So
it's a
you
lot
can.
more of that kind of talk. A lot less about like the inner workings of our government, which I rant about. I kind of pulled back from that because
With who?
In terms of like my,
I literally last night at 11:30, I finally had to tap your leg, and I go, "I gotta put a pin in it, babe." And you go, "Oh, fine," and rolled over and went to sleep.
I mean, I do find it fascinating, and I do have legitimate, serious concerns about the future of the United States in terms of like, what?
Well, yeah. I was like,
Oh, and I did learn something about the recall effort. So this is some a little up.
okay, well, wait. Can I put a cap though on
Yes,
the journey that you
yes,
just exhausted me to talk about?
yeah.
Um, that that is what I think is important. And I also like, the other thing is like I think all of our differences are what make us the most interesting. I also think it's what gives us the most power. That's why, if you're looking at this from a spiritual standpoint, whether you call it God, source, universe, I don't, you know what I mean? I don't have time to make everybody feel included. Whatever your higher power, if that is what you believe. I think that's why we all are so different. And everybody is like just wanting to be around the people who are exactly like them. And I'm like, there's a reason why we're not all homogenous.
Yeah.
There's a reason for
Sure.
that. And so that's also the way that I identify by looking at, I mean, I think government is like flawed no matter what. I mean, you can even take like all of the most, diverse people and we're all going to put them in positions of power and everybody thinks things are going to change. And I'm sure they will. I'm not saying that like, if our Supreme Court looked, like the front of a Spanish book, where it's like, when,
Like a college brochure.
yeah, like,
That's a
yeah,
better- yeah.
yeah, yeah, yeah. It's
A
like,
little bit of everything.
yeah. One person's in a wheelchair and everybody,
Right.
it's like,
You got like a cool non-binary, like
Yeah.
vaguely brown, but you don't know where they're from
yeah,
person.
and it's like everybody's welcome here, a little bit of placating, but we get it. But I'm just saying, yeah, like even if our Supreme Court, I'm being silly, our Supreme Court looked like that, obviously we're going to have much different outcomes when things get to the Supreme Court because you have people with vastly different life experiences that will be bringing their insight and discernment from a different place.
I agree with you 100%. I just think in addition to that, it's equally as important to have people with different political views as well. To me, if it's
Right. That's what I'm saying. I'm saying if you have a mixed bag, because to me, that is how we would then make the best quote unquote decisions. I'm also just of the mind now where I think it's insane that American culture is all about individualism, yet now we're all going, well, we're so divided. And I'm like,
duh.
you motherfuckers did this to us. Like, why is everybody confused?
That's so funny. Hey man,
Like, it's just a
that-
narrative. It's a narrative that's being used against us. And
Yeah.
every time I'm starting to see that or people that disagree, and it's like, if you don't think what I think, like I think about all the families that have been torn apart through the Trump administration and, and all of that because we couldn't just agree to disagree. And I understand it is violently emotional. I mean, I understand that. I mean, you and I sometimes
When do you think we'll finally like not talk about Trump anymore? Like how many years?
I don't think ever.
Really?
I think there has been a huge shift in the way that we communicate and the way that we view the world because it was so disruptive.
yeah.
And I don't necessarily think that over time that's a bad thing.
You do use that term disruptor quite a bit. You talk about disruptors. I've heard you mention this.
Oh.
You don't remember this?
I mean, not where I'm like, I not consciously where it's a thing that I'm like, this is the tear I'm on.
Okay, can I give you some info about the recall?
Sure.
What? Then you want to know?
Yeah. I was hoping maybe you'd respond to what I said, but
Okay, what specifically do you want a response with?
well, no, clearly you've done this where you were like hearing me, but you were waiting for your turn. You're the actor in the scene who's
no,
and now you're waiting for your cue. You're waiting for your cue. You know what I mean?
I asked you a question about Trump. You gave me an answer, and I think that's the end of that little tidbit.
All right, tell me about the recall.
So I thought I was under the impression that it had to be like Gavin. So it's Gavin Newsom, and then there had to be like one candidate who got way more
And
votes.
yeah, and so really quick, if people that are not up to date with California politics, which I mean, I know I'm tired too. We are talking about the recall of our governor, Gavin
Correct.
Newsom.
Yeah,
Okay.
which we both agree should happen.
Ugh, just what a salamander with a human like body. I can't stand him.
He does look like an evil mayor from a Batman film. Like he does look like if a bad politician, you know. But anyway, okay. So I was under the impression that it was going to end up having to be like a candidate to get more votes than Gavin Newsom. And I was like, there's no way that's going to happen. That's not how the recall works. There's 2 questions on the ballot. The first question is,
Huh.
do you think Gavin Newsom should be recalled? Just that alone. And then the next question is, of all of these candidates, who would you prefer to be the governor? So if 51% or more of the votes say yes, recall Gavin Newsom, then whoever happens to get the most votes of the second pool automatically becomes governor. So even if like 10 people voted for one candidate and that was the most who got the votes, but everybody voted just get rid of Gavin, that person will become governor. So that actually could happen.
Oh God. So Caitlyn Jenner could become our governor.
We got a lot of people running. Okay, so Caitlyn Jenner is one. There's Angeline, the billboard model, and just if you don't know Angeline, she drives this pink Corvette all around LA. How would you describe Angeline?
Well, so she was really big in the 80s, and I've seen many a documentary. I'm very fascinated. And shout out to our good friend Tim Banning, who was like such a huge
loves
Angeline
Angeline,
fan. And so
And Angeline Fiend.
Angeline Fiend, and they've got merch. They don't. She yeah, I think was like a Russian immigrant or like something, and like came to America kind of with this whole idea of like wanting to be famous. Well, of course, I don't think that she had much talent or things like that, but somehow over time stumbled into more and more money and has manipulated her body to where she looks like a Barbie doll. But now she's like in her 60s.
She looks like a Barbie doll if it was like left in the microwave.
Well, yeah, but when she was younger, I mean,
Sure.
she, but yeah, so now she just looks like a 6-year-old woman who's had a lot of work done, but she always has big glasses on and like long blonde hair. And yeah, she's drives around in this pink Corvette. And then, yeah, you can pay her, $10 or whatever and take a picture with her, an autograph or whatever. But she's like an LA staple.
Right. So there's her, there's Caitlyn Jenner, there's the mayor of San Diego. I don't remember his name, but he's running. There's some guy named John Cox, I think is his name, some business guy who's run for political office like 12 times.
Oh, this is the guy that won't give up.
Right.
See, and I got to know more about Mr. Cox because I'll tell you what, there's part of me that I'm like, what a guy. This guy has run for so many different political offices and he's not won a single one, but he's trying again. And there's a part of me where I'm like, I mean, is he going to do worse than Gavin?
Right.
Should we give it to him?
I think that's the attitude. I would prefer not another old white dude. Let's just mix it up a bit. That's why I like Major Williams, handsome young black gentleman. Seems like a articulate guy. I don't know a ton about.
Was not a major, by the way. We figured
that's
that
his
out.
actual name. His name is Major. He wasn't like a military major. Mary Carey, the retired porn actress, is running. Okay, so here's some of the folks who are running for governor.
I mean, if that is not the perfect example of why California is in the state it is, I don't know what to tell you.
Yeah. So here we go. So basically, candidates, they have to file some paperwork and pay like a $3,000 filing fee. Yeah, $3,916 to run, and then you're on the ballot. Basically, you need to get 7,000 valid signatures saying like we endorse you as a candidate. That makes sense. You should have to. It can't just be $4,000. You need to get some signatures. I do support that. So yeah, Kevin Falconer, the mayor, former San Diego mayor. This businessman John Cox, excuse me.
Yeah, just slow down. We're with you. You don't have to go so fast.
So he's a multimillionaire. He made his money in real estate investments. And this is so funny. So he used his wealth to fund several unsuccessful runs for office. Congress in 2000, the Senate in 2002, Cook County Record of Deeds, I don't know what that means, in 2004. Ran for U.S. president in 2008 and governor of California in 2018. And he spent at least nearly $6 million last race for California in 2018. So he ran against Newsom once already and lost. Caitlyn Jenner, we all know, some former representative in Congress.
So nobody interesting.
No. And the thing is, I think most people, all the stuff I've read, most people think Newsom's going to stay in office because there's no.
This is what we don't deserve nice things.
Well, the only person that did it who won a recall election in California was Schwarzenegger, and because he was this iconic, beloved figure, and so I think enough people will just end up being like, whatever. There's a real election in 2002 anyway. Let him stay in for a year.
2002.
Excuse me, 2022 is what I meant to say. That's like the scheduled normal governor election.
Oh, so then what do we have to lose? We could put Major in for a year.
That's my attitude. Let's just vote out Newsom and roll the dice. Give somebody a year, even if it is Angeline.
I mean, there's no way that anyone could do worse. And I will stand by that. Like,
yeah.
because A, you're not going to
What
get
if-
anything passed in a year.
Hold on. I got a real question for you. Okay. I'm gonna name 5 people that could be running against Gavin Newsom. This isn't actually happening, but right. And
got it. It's a game.
Seriously, would you pick them to be the governor of our state over Gavin Newsom? All right. First up, your favorite, Tommy Lauren.
No.
Candace Owens.
You're just picking people I don't like.
Hold on. But that's my question, though. You said anyone.
All right, keep going. You were so...
Ted Cruz. Mitch McConnell. Tucker Carlson. Would you vote for any of them over Gavin Newsom? I'm getting a pulse on how much you dislike Gavin Newsom compared to these people.
I would pick Tucker Carlson.
You would let Tucker be our governor.
It's only a year.
Okay.
Because then if he does a good job, I mean, listen, all they have to do is just sit in the seat
Sure.
for a year.
You know who would be
That's
great?
it.
I'd said Mario Lopez. I would love to see. You know,
Be great. He'd be great.
charming.
Governor Lopez.
We get to have a Latino represent his community as our governor. It'd be nice to have that for a change.
Oh my gosh.
You know,
Going loco with Lopez.
I don't think. I mean, why would anyone? He has a great gig with E. Why would he want to be the governor? You know,
It's only a year. It's only a year.
think about like if Dan Levy was our governor.
That would be great.
What would he be like? It'd be so funny.
I don't know. I don't just whatever you guys want to do. Okay.
Governor Levy, how are we going to solve the homelessness problem in California?
Oh yeah.
Okay.
And then all the bits are just about how his clothes are like too big, so he also looks homeless.
But yeah, I like my guy Major Williams so far. I'm going to be voting at the moment, at least, to get rid of Gavin Newsom, throw in Major Williams. I'd love to give this guy a shot. Seems like he's got a
But
good head
this
on his
is also the
shoulders.
perfect example of why. Like I was listening to, I don't really know how. So there's this. I mean, I guess he studies numerology, but to just call him a numerologist feels like I'm degrading how many skills he has. But his name is Remington Donovan, and
What a name, you know.
he looks like Alex pointed this out. He looks like the dude from Big Lebowski, and he's like this super spiritual being. But then it's why I'm so attracted to him is like, yeah, of like, you know, kind of looks shaggy, like just kind of talks, you know, like just like California, laid back guy.
Cool, bro.
And so I'm very attracted to what he's sharing. But that was something where he was like, we have to stop with this narrative of like calling politicians leaders.
Yeah.
Our best leaders have not been politicians.
Yeah.
You know, like, or have later become politicians, and because that's how you get things done. But it's like, you know, Martin Luther King was not a politician. John Lewis was not a politician until he was.
Okay. Gandhi, not a politician.
Gandhi, not a politician.
Who are some other great leaders?
You know, I mean, even like Gloria Steinem,
Yeah.
not a politician. Ted Kennedy was not before, and then, you know, obviously
Sure.
after losing his brother, and then he was like, he felt called to go into this work as
You know
well.
who else is not a politician? Rachel LaForce.
This is true. Not for now. No bullshit party, guys. Feel free to join me.
You would not. You're.
Oh my God. Are you kidding? Unless I was a lobbyist and I could just talk at people that I vehemently disagree with.
What would you lobby for, though? What kind of cause?
I mean, I don't know. How many can you do more than one? Or can you only be a lobbyist for one thing?
Well, you can do either.
Probably mental health.
So I worked for a lobbying. One of my first internships in college was I worked at a lobbying firm, and they had like a roster of clients. So they were professional lobbyists, and they represented everything from companies that made technology that went into like our tanks in Iraq to Native American Indian tribes to all kinds of stuff. So
It's like a very diverse record label.
yeah, kind of. And then you have professional lobbying groups that represent one cause.
Why is it called lobbying? Because I feel like that
Let's find out.
the term is misleading, right? Because a lobbyist really, right? They basically talk for a living in order to either secure funds or, right?
Yeah, they basically try to lobby, advocate on behalf of whatever they represent to get Congress and other things. You know, they have state level lobbyists too. Okay, so lobby. Oh, that's like the definition of like a hallway. And okay. The term lobbying first appeared in print in 1820, describing members of the Senate lobbying members of the House of Representatives to take up a piece of legislation they
Oh, because
passed.
they probably were all talking to each other in the actual lobby.
That makes sense. Yeah.
Okay.
There you go. Now we know. I thought it was sort of like so dumb, like lobbing your opinions at them. Like,
You don't what's to lob? That's not a term.
yeah, it is. It's a noun. What? Yeah, define to lob something. It's like to throw something.
Also, why am I sitting like this?
I don't know.
I look like I'm like
Look at this. Okay. To let hang heavily, to throw, hit, propel easily, or in a high arc.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah.
Okay.
So I thought it was like you're like throwing your support or your advocacy.
Okay.
So now we know.
Now we know.
I think you could kind of be a lobbyist, but my assessment from this one lobbying firm I worked for, or interned for rather, it's kind of like in Hollywood where you have a lot of meetings where you pretend to care what people think and a lot of, you know,
Yeah. Well, that's the thing. I mean, the government and Hollywood are the same.
yeah, there's like a phrase. It's like Hollywood is LA for stupid people, or Hollywood is DC for stupid people. And then people say DC is Hollywood for ugly people. There's like phrases people throw out.
Yeah, those are hilarious. Um,
Well,
but yeah, I mean,
there is kind of a work hard, play hard.
but I think that's dumb to assume. That's stupid in and of itself to assume that just because people work in
Man, it's just
politics
this
that they're
phrase.
smart.
Most
mean,
of them aren't.
But that's the thing, where it's like, and I mean, like nepotism and all that is just like rampant.
You know what's funny? We were talking to a friend of ours recently, and he was saying how, like, when you get to know some of these executives, you realize, oh, they're not even like brilliant people. They're just really good at like the game of like working up through the pipeline of, that world.
Yeah, they'll eat shit sandwiches until they can serve them.
Like, say what you want. Like, Elon Musk, for all of his flaws, he's a brilliant guy. I mean, he clearly is wildly intelligent in the world of his realm of science.
Well, yeah, he has learned how to tap into a frequency of success,
Right.
for sure.
But
But to take him, I mean, but that's again, like we're even seeing this, like,
when people say dumb stuff like, well, people said Hitler was brilliant. What do you think of that?
well, that's true too. I mean, but again, it's like so it's interesting because then again, my boy Remington, if you it's weird to talk about somebody that I really like so much, and I don't know.
You hear that, Rem Dog?
But we're gonna be
Open
buddies.
invite to come on the pod.
We're gonna be buddies at some point. I believe it. But he, was speaking about that, and I found it so interesting because he was even speaking to like this dip we saw this last week in cryptocurrency, and he was talking about that. He was like, "Yeah, the reason is because everybody has put all of this emphasis, like everybody's running around yelling about the billionaire class, yet we're giving them a lot of power."
Oh, yeah.
Like, he was like, even the fact that, like, just because Elon said something and then it caused everybody to sell, he's like, you don't think that Elon Musk is making those choices in order to better manipulate the market?
Of course.
Like, why is nobody thinking through? And that's just the same thing of like, our politicians are not leaders. They're not leading.
Well,
They're arguing with each other. They look silly. I
Well-
mean, I'm frankly, like, I'm embarrassed.
It's something you
If
said.
you were having a Twitter beef, like, regardless of who is right or wrong, but
I
it's like,
prefer Twitter poultry.
guys, this has been highly unlikely. Or what's our show? Common Group.
Ground.
Oh my god.
That
Oh
was
wow.
the worst joke I've ever made.
We
Wait, but
are
you were
awake.
saying something interesting recently where you were going on about how
Oh well, thank you.
people who will simultaneously help me remember what you were saying. It was like who will simultaneously be like, the government's lying to us, but don't take your mask off because the CDC is like.
Oh no. I was talking about. I'm getting really frustrated. So again, we have created this world of clickbait. We all get frustrated in saying, "Oh, everything's clickbait," but then with all these reposting infographics and all of that, and everybody will find one phrase and then they'll use it as though like that's their, shield of armor of why their opinion is right.
Yeah.
And it's like our opinions come from our experiences and our and are based off of the emotion of that experience. So if you had a positive experience, your opinion of that thing is going to be in favor, or it's going to be, like in disagreement or whatever. And so they're not actually based on facts and
Right.
nuance. They're based off of the way that something made us feel,
Sure.
which is my favorite. And someone's like, well, I only like, I'm coming at this from facts and figures. And it's like, no, you're not. You're coming at this based off of like your life experience and how something made you feel.
Sure.
So with that being said, the narrative is now if you don't get the vaccine, you don't believe in science.
Right.
You don't believe in science. That's what it is. And I'm like, I don't think anybody who is this new term I've learned, which is vi-curious, which is where you're not anti-vax, but you haven't gotten the vaccine yet, right?
Boo.
I don't know, dude.
Vi-curious?
It's the internet, okay?
God, God, if you're real, just take away the internet. Make us go back to pre-internet times.
Okay, well, be careful because we're about to have a baby and we're going to have to Google a lot of things, okay? But yeah, I think it would be interesting. It would have been great if during COVID we also didn't have the internet and people really had to figure out what to do.
Yeah, but think about how lonely they would be also. You probably would have made friends with your neighbors.
Yeah, I think we would have been fine.
You know how I know? Because we made friends with our neighbors in Atlanta when we were there. And they're some of our best friends now.
That's true.
Dude, shout out to the Hales. Katie and Pierce, if you hear this episode, we love you guys.
We really do.
And your kids, obviously.
We really do. But we won't name your children on a public forum.
Yeah, let's not do that.
Walk me back. Science. Okay. And so this idea that if you don't want to get the vaccine immediately, that you don't believe in science. I'm like, wait a minute. So just because somebody is saying, I was like, I think people understand that like a vaccine is made through science. I think the majority of people understand that, it's simply that they potentially, their government has lied to them for however long. And now they're like, yeah, I'm not really in a rush to put this thing in my body when the government has lied to me this entire, or I don't actually think so much the government has specifically lied as much as it is like we've been told all sorts of mixed messages, right? So if people that are feeling that way are like, yeah, I'm not going to like jump to do this thing, I don't feel like that means that they're saying that they don't believe in science.
Yeah.
And then at the same time, like these are also the same people that have like followed what the CDC has said, like by the book, right?
Yeah.
And if you've been like anti-mask or whatever, it's like, but the CDC said it. If you don't agree with the CDC. And now the CDC has said, if you are fully vaccinated, you don't have to wear a mask.
Dude, they should rename that the Center for Deranged Commentary because that's all that the CDC has spurred from all of this. It's just everyone giving their like unbridled, unchecked, uninformed opinion of what they've decided is right.
But that's the thing where it was like, okay, so now the CDC has said that the group that you have been yelling on the internet that people are not listening to has said if you are fully vaccinated, you do not need to wear a mask outside.
But I think
But then those same people are now going, you should still always have a mask on. And I'm like, wait a minute. So I feel like you don't believe in science.
Right.
I feel like you're not agreeing with science.
Sounded
like
Anchorman right there.
Well, I feel a little bit like that, where I am just shocked by how people are able now to pick out any part of the narrative that they want. Like I personally, I've tried to look at all of this from a very like nuanced point of view. How can I best like take care of myself, listen to my body, take care of our family, right?
Sure.
And then let everybody else do what they need to do. But it's like I have no energy to be concerned with what everybody else is doing when it comes to like whether they want to get the vaccine or not, or they're wearing a mask or otherwise. Like I don't really care. I barely leave my house anyway. You know what I mean? Destroy yourselves. Have fun. But
Shots fired.
but I'm just saying, like, it is shocking because when I walk around, I mean, I'm so pregnant now that, like, if I do have to wear a mask for a long period of time, I cannot participate because breathing in my own CO2, I literally get lightheaded and I do not do well. So,
Probably not good for the baby either.
no, it's not. It is not a good situation. And so if it's something where, like, if you go to a show and, like, you have to wear a mask the whole time, then, like, unfortunately, I just can't go because
Yeah,
I'll get sick.
But
So-
see, but you're rational because you're saying I will not participate. You're not demanding other people change the rules for you.
Yeah, because guess what? The world does not revolve around me. I mean, sometimes I still act as though it does, but I'm at least conscious.
You are an only child.
Mhm.
And at least for some period of time, Jonah will be an only child. Hopefully not too long,
Hopefully not.
but at least for like a year or two.
I know. But he will think the world revolves around him because he has 3 different sets of grandparents that will spoil him. But yeah, I think it's when I was walking on Larchmont to meet up with a friend and I didn't have my mask on. And I can feel as I'm passing certain people who are wearing a mask, standing outside, like waiting for a coffee or whatever, not around anybody, of this feeling of like, this woman is pregnant and not wearing a mask, and I'm like, no, I'm not talking to you. I'm not like, there is no one around me. Like, I just, I don't know. I think it's insane. I think we have lost our sense of logic.
Did we ever have it though? Really? Honestly.
I mean, maybe not. I mean, maybe that is also what we're seeing of like,
That should be the new phrase. Make America sane again.
Oh gosh, I'll buy that merch.
Yeah. Massa.
Massa.
Instead of MAGA,
Oh.
make America sane again.
I mean, it's so true.
Was it ever though?
I don't think so. And I mean, listen, it's like, again, we all come to these things for the reason that we do and blah, 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 blah. But it's just like, it's insane. And I was meeting up with another friend and, who I trust, who I know, etc. And anybody that I've seen now, and I ask, and I'm like, are you hugging? Or are you? Because some people are.
We should also just keep that a thing. Like, just always ask before hugging someone.
100%. And like, and because I also think that like the handshake,
What's funny? One of the I heard like Eliza one time, this is pre-COVID, just mentioned on a podcast how she like hates when like comics she doesn't know, like dudes, just try to hug her. And it's like, yeah, I don't like when people I don't know try to hug me.
Yeah.
Imagine if you're a woman.
Yeah. Well, and some people don't like to be touched,
No.
and that's understandable.
We don't need to hug. I'm a fist bump guy, little touching as possible. I don't know what your dirty ass hands have been.
Yeah. I mean, honestly, I understand why Asian cultures bow. I feel like that makes way more sense.
I would love to bow, but we would be accused of appropriating that culture. Is there a way we could bring bowing into American mainstream without it being appropriating it? Like, is there a way to do it with honor and respect to the Asian culture that made it popular and then make it part of our culture? I'm being dead serious.
I'm sure there is. I don't think anybody that listens to this podcast could probably give us a hot take.
In America, this is how like self-righteous we are. The only time we bow is after we perform.
Oh my God. Oh, that is so funny. That is so true. We're just like, thank you for watching me and my talents. Like, oh my God. You're so right.
But Asian people are so like, we just bow as a sign of respect to everyone.
Yeah. But we will bow to a auditorium of people applauding us. And then we'll do that. My favorite is like the quick hop off stage.
Oh yeah,
that they do, and then when everybody's still applauding, and then they're not like. By the way, and I'm sure everybody knows this, but like when you do an encore like that, these people don't like think that they're done. Right. They're waiting in the wings to then do that soft run back to you, and then another just over dramatic bow.
Yeah. Oh well. Anyway, it's been an hour just about. So on that note,
well, but let me finish of saying that. In reality, I do think that's such a beautiful thing because there is a sense of like, there is a sense of dissonance when you're either meeting with somebody in a business. Like a handshake is either it's solidifying or opening up the conversation, right? It's an act of intimacy of like, we are here, we are engaging. It's the same way of like, we met up with friends yesterday, like, we spent 4 hours in communion with them and, had this beautiful.
Not church communion, just like spending time with them.
Right. And,
I just wanted to clarify.
Well, people would really think we're making interesting choices otherwise.
Great friends.
And, and like had dinner with them and all those things, or brunch. And, so yeah, if we were to just go, okay, bye, like that would feel weird. There would be dissonance because we've had this intimate afternoon. And so, but I understand, the people don't want to, but there is a sense of like the bow to me that is a very like sacred, beautiful way that's non-confrontational. We don't have to talk about it, but it's just like okay, and we're done.
Yeah, remember when the elbow bump was a thing?
I feel like it still is.
It's
Our doctor does that every
yeah,
time he
that's
comes in.
true. I'm okay with the elbow. I don't like the foot tap. That's stupid. You've seen that one?
No, if somebody tried to do that to me, I would go, I don't think we need to hang out.
It was like early on in COVID, it was like trending, and it was just you take your foot and tap it on someone else's foot, and it's like that feels intimate. I don't want to do that.
Feels
That
weird.
we literally touching your foot to someone else's foot is like a thing you do when you're like in middle school and you want to like play footsie.
Sure. Yeah. I just think it's weird. If a grown person was like, what's up? I'd be
I'm
like,
into the bow. I want us to make 2022 the year of the bow.
I mean, I don't, you know.
With respect, of course, to the origins of the cultures that started bowing.
Yeah,
in the first place.
unfortunately, I don't think that we will make that shift.
That's a thing. We can pause this for another episode, but this is something I've legitimately tried to figure out the answer to, and no one seems to know how to tell me the right answer. It's like cultural appropriation, which is real. We should
Yes.
not let it become a thing and call it out and respect. I totally get it. If like you were from a culture that made something, you would not like it if another culture, especially a more, zeitgeist powerful culture, took that without credit. But what's the right way to enjoy and partake in other culture without appropriating it? That's the part that gets murky.
I think it's the participation that is currently happening. So like if there was like if you like Day of the Dead type things,
Sure.
it would be participating in that ceremony, in that celebration amongst people whose that is their culture. So it would be an active participation alongside them.
Okay.
I believe because then you are you're not taking it for yourself of your own interpretation. You would be collectively participating in it.
But like here's a serious question, right? If you just like love Mexican food, you were a chef, would you be able to open your own Mexican restaurant? If you just like genuinely love that cuisine and you are a chef as a
I
white
thi-
woman.
I think there is a way to do it that is respectful. I think because you have other honorary chefs that either come in, you attribute where like you have learned, you've actually gone to Mexico and you have like the difference is, you know, being Kylie Jenner or was it Kendall Jenner where
I
they
don't know.
started their own like tequila
Oh yeah, I heard about
and
that.
then they
vaguely.
came under fire for it. So I think it's when you're taking something else and being like, this is mine. And it's like, no, it's not.
Well, the Jenner
So
Kardashian
I
crew
mean,
are the
I
worst
think
example.
the most, and I don't mean to trivialize cultural appropriation, but I think part of it is, and it's actually something I'm still learning about as well because it is complicated. Or maybe not. I feel like somebody who would be like, it's really not, just like don't appropriate it. It's really quite easy. But I'm still learning.
But what is appropriation is the tricky part. That's what I'm saying. It's like
I think it's taking something that is someone else's and trying to make it your own. It's basically like plagiarism. It's the same thing of trying to say that this is your thing. So I do think there's a way to utilize other cultures. I think there's a way um, to pay tribute to it. I think it's when primarily white people, primarily white women, take
wait a minute. You said women weird.
take something of another culture and are trying to be like, this is my new Mexican bodega.
Or like yoga, for example.
Yeah. Like, yeah, if there was
But
like,
you can't. Yoga is good for everybody, and it's like, yes, yoga came from India, but you can't. The idea that like only Indian people from India should be allowed to teach yoga is a little silly, right?
I don't think anybody's saying that. I think,
yeah.
I mean, I think the conversation is around, I think to me, it's as simple as like awareness. It's people who are just completely unaware that are trying to be like, no, this is like totally cool. It's like,
Keep yourself aware and be open to share. That's what we need to do. And with that, Rachel, we're over an hour.
oh gosh.
We got to wrap it up.
Okay.
Any final thoughts?
No, I wanted to get into the state of Texas making it. They passed a bill. Did you know about this? We're not going to talk about it. We'll save it.
Maybe.
But they
A new abortion law, right? Is that what you're going to talk
well,
about?
that's a whole other
Oh, okay.
thing.
What are you going to get into?
But no, that the state of Texas is basically passed a bill in the middle of the night that is saying that teachers are not allowed to talk about racism.
I'll have to research, and I'm not saying that's inaccurate. I just like that headline. I got to read through it and see what that means. So we'll save it for next week. You'll give your take. I'll give mine. My assumption is that with the narrative around critical race theory and that language, there's some pushback in Texas of like what that what the curriculum will be. We will find out. You will learn next week if you listen.
Let me just leave you on this. Anytime that you try to say that people can't do something, that's normally a really good indicator that we've triggered something. You know what I
Sure.
mean? That's all I'm saying.
Well, on
So,
that, I'm Alex Gettlin.
guys, I've been Rachel LaForce.
We'll see you again, whenever you choose to join us, hopefully next Monday.
Yeah. Okay, bye.